so much for this Monday morning, and thank you so much for giving us the new energy and healthy body to be able to come to class, and teach and to learn. Father God, we ask you, Holy Spirit, to come and speak to each of our hearts, Lord God, and may Holy Spirit lead us into your presence, Lord God, even through this time of learning. Lord, help us understand your word so that your word will set us free, and that we'll be blessed, that will glorify your name, being empowered by the love of God that has been revealed through your word. Thank you, Lord. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So, we are going on to Book of Esther, which is chapter 6, page 26. Page 26. And we're going to turn to that a little bit later. And we're going to meditate on chapter 2 today.
You don't need
Yeah, what? Do you know why it's not?
to. I want to.
Huh? Oh, it is for. Okay. That's for mine.
Esther.
Okay, so we're turning to Esther chapter 2, verses 5 and on until we stop. Okay? So we're gonna go. So Esther.
Yeah.
2, 5.
5.
To
Pass.
to 5 and past. Okay. So let's start reading this. So Trun, could you please read verse 5?
Now there was in the citadel of Susa of the top of Benjamin, the name Mordecai, son of the son of Simon,
Shimei.
Simon, the son of
Kish.
Kish,
Han.
who has been carried into how you pronounce this one? It's from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar. I know it's very hard to pronounce. Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar. King of Babylon. Among those take captivate with Jehoiachin, king of Judah.
James, verse 7.
摩迪改抚养着叔的女儿哈大莎，就是后来的以斯帖，因为她没有父母，这女子容貌俊美，她父母死了，摩迪改就收养她为女儿。
Right, so basically Esther was a Persian name, Hadassah was her Jewish name, and she was an orphan and therefore was raised by her cousin, right? Verse 8. Audrey? Verse 8.
When the king's order and
Edict
had been proclaimed, and many young any younger woman will bring
brought
brought to the
citadel
citadel of Susa and put under the
care of Hagar.
care of Hagar.
Uh-huh.
Esther also has taken to the king's palace and entrusted to Hagar, who had charge of the
Harem.
Hagar.
Uh-huh. Oh, I forget your name again.
Vivian.
Vivian. Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry. Verse 9.
She blessed him and won his
Favor.
favor
Uh-huh.
immediately.
That's right.
He provided her with her beauty treatment and special food.
Uh-huh.
He assigned to her 7 female attendants selected for the king's place and moved her and her attendants into the best place in the
Harem.
harem.
Uh-huh. Trump.
Eden had not revealed her nationality and family background because Mordecai, right, has forbidden her to do so.
Right. Han?
Every day he walked back and forth near the courtyard of the harem to find out how Esther was and what happened to her. What had happened to her.
Uh-huh. And let's go with Audrey.
Before the younger woman come to go into king's
Xerxes.
success, she had to complete 12 months of beauty
Prescribed. Prescribed.
prescribed for the woman. 6 months with oil of
Myrrh.
myrrh and 6 with perfume and
Cosmetics.
cosmetics.
Uh-huh. Vivian.
And this is how she would go to the king. Anything they wanted was given her to take with her from the farmer to the king's place.
James 14.
14，晚上进去，次日回到女子第二段，交给掌管嫔妃的太监沙甲，除非王喜爱他，再提名召他，就再也不能进去见王。
Chur 15.
When the turn came from Esther, the young woman Mordecai has adopted the daughter of his uncle Abihar to go to the king. She asked for nothing other than what Herod, the king eunuch, who was in charge of the harem, suggest, and either want to favor anyone who saw her.
Mm-hmm. Han?
She was taken to King
Xerxes.
in the royal residence in the 10th month of Tibet in the 7th year of his reign.
Mm-hmm.
Now the king was
Retracted.
to Israel more than to any of the other women, and she won his favor and applause more than any of the other virgins. So he set the right crown on her head and made her queen instead of
Vashti.
Vashti.
Right.
And the king gave a great banquet for all his nobles and officials. He proclaimed a holiday throughout and the province and distributed gifts with royal liberty.
All right. So, what do you think the story is about? It's about Queen Esther, right? How many of you know Queen Esther? Have you heard of the story? No? Okay. So, we're going to talk about Queen Esther. So, it's really interesting. The book in the Old Testament, we're learning about writings. And among the writings, Book of Esther is one book, right? Just very few chapters, right? But according to the Jewish tradition, women and children are not counted as equal as men. And so your name is not even supposed to be there, right? But how did Esther become the title? Very interesting, right? Because it's so against the culture. It's on page 26, chapter 6, okay? So, so this is a very, very unique book. It's worth studying, right? And so we just learned about the beginning of the story. Queen Esther was not a queen at the beginning, right? So Esther means star. Her Jewish name was Hadassah, means myrtle tree. So her name was just a tree, okay? I've heard of some names, these people name their kids in a very interesting way. So one of the kids that I know, her name is Apple. All right, so Esther's Jewish name was Hadassah, myrtle tree. Okay, so, hey, myrtle tree, good morning. And her Persian name. So this took place when the Jewish people were conquered by Persian Empire, Persia. You know Persia? Persian Empire? Okay, so it's after Babylonian, it's before the Roman Empire. You know the land of Persia? Persia is known for so many beautiful women and their dance and their costumes, beautiful clothes. Persia exists still now, but they used to be a giant empire taking up so many countries. Like it was a vast land that was under the Persian rule. Okay. Anyway, so Persia took over one country after another, including the land of the Jewish people. Okay. So the Jewish were conquered by Persia, and therefore they were taken into exile. So meaning, when a stronger country takes over the other country, they take away the people as slaves, servants. To you know what I mean? So.
Black men, right?
Oh yeah, just like that. Yeah, just like that. So these people, good morning. These people were taken into exile by Persian people. And so just like the black people were taken out of Africa, they had their own language. Good morning. They had their own language, African language. But when they came to the United States or to England or other countries, they had to learn the new language. Is that true? Yeah, so they had to learn the new language. The Jewish people were all bilinguals, at least bilinguals, because they spoke the Jewish language, and they spoke Hebrew, and they spoke Persian language, right? And so Esther was born, but she was part of the exile people. Like she was living in Persia. By the way, she was an orphan. She did not have parents. Her parents died early. So she had an older cousin whose name was Mordecai. So cousin, but she was a child. Mordecai was a cousin, but he was an adult. So they had father-daughter kind of relationship. So Mordecai raised her like his own daughter. And Mordecai, by the way, was not just a parent figure, but he was a good mentor. Do you have a mentor? Do you have someone who guides you? You know, do you have somebody who you can go to talk about your life journey, and this person guides you to the right direction, you know, helps you to find the way? Good morning. How are you? Good, we missed you last time. So yeah, so, all right, somebody's teasing, sitting right there. All right, so, who was a good mentor? Do you know what a mentor is? Mentor? Mentor. What?
How to
Do you know?
spell?
Huh?
How to spell mentor?
M-E-N
M-E-N.
T-O-R. Do you know what a mentor is? Mentor. Mentor, mentee. Right? M-E-N-T-O-R.
It's a soulmate, right? It's the same words as soulmate.
No. Mentor is someone who is who is not
like your teacher or something.
Yeah, similar to someone who is a teacher. But you know, teacher just teaches. Okay, so I'm teaching right now. Okay, but I may not be your mentor. But if you come to me with questions about life, with questions about certain issues, and I guide you to the right direction, I help you find your way, I'm being your mentor. Does it make sense? So Mordecai was not only a parent, you know, like to Esther, who was an orphan, although he was a cousin. Okay? He was a father figure, and he was also a mentor to Esther. So Esther, she had a tough background. Right? If you're an orphan, if you don't have parents, and especially in the old days, if you're not living in the United States in 2019, but if you're living back in those days, you get more hardship if you don't have parents. Okay? So, well, emotionally, psychologically, well, just feel like, I don't have parents. Look at all the kids outside. They all have parents. You know, when they play outside, moms come out and they take good care of the children. When problems happen, you know, dads appear. You know, he's a problem solver. Esther did not have that. You know, although Esther was very much loved by Mordecai, she grew up knowing, oh, you know, I don't have parents. Mordecai is a cousin. He loves me, but I don't have parents. So like she had like an emotional wound, right, of not having parents. But somehow, long story short, Mordecai was a good mentor. Why was he a good mentor? You can tell by the product. So if someone was a good mentor or not, you can tell by how their mentees turn out to be. Is that right? So let me give you another example. If you're a parent, if you're a good parent, all right, then how can you tell your kids turn out to be good? Is that true? Yeah? Generally. Generally, if you're a good parent, your children will turn out to be good. If you're a good mentor, your mentee is gonna turn out to be good. And Esther turned out to be amazing. All right, so let's take a look at this. So she was a Jew living in Persia. So a lot of discrimination. They're like, oh, you know, there's a Jewish girl, you know, like, because they're in exile. They're like, treated as second-class citizens at best, if not as slaves. They're looked down upon, okay? But she, when she became a teenager, when she was like 14, 15, kind of, very, very young still, something happened in the Persian Empire. What happened is this. At that time, the emperor's name was Xerxes, all right? Xerxes, very, very strange name, right? So Xerxes is known for, he's a well-known king. So this is a true story, by the way, historical event. Xerxes is known for his military skills and just invading so many countries, for his, what you may call like the it's not excursions, what do you call that? So he was very good at going out and attacking and enlarging the territory of the kingdom. So he was an aggressive person, politically wise. He was very much equipped with all the knowledge and strategies that it takes to conquer other lands. So he is very well known, he's famous, like Alexander. Xerxes was like that. Now, he had a beautiful queen named Vashti. Okay? Vashti, probably the only reason he picked her is because of her beauty. Because King Xerxes had a party. So kings have a party. So this party is not just a regular party, but rather it goes on and on for weeks and weeks and weeks to demonstrate how great the country is, how great his kingship is. So he's trying to show off to people like how much gold and how much silver he has and how many servants he has, how extravagant his palace is. Like he's trying to show off. And also, this was a way to encourage his soldiers, his military, by showing his greatness. We are great, we are rich, and we are strong. And now go out and the word that I was looking for was expeditions. Okay, going out and attacking other countries. Like now go out and attack more. So by throwing out this extravagant party, he wanted to encourage soldiers to go out and do more invasion. All right, and so by the way, he became so drunk in the party, and when he was really high, he said, "Bring my queen Vashti. Okay, I want to show her beauty to everyone." All right, that's how beautiful she was. By the way, Vashti, she was not a thoughtless woman. I mean, to my opinion, I don't know. So it's king's order, you better obey. She did not obey. She said, "I'm not going." So you're showing me like an object to other people to show them how beautiful I am, so that you'll be satisfied. Like, I have this kind of woman in my life, That's what you want to show. Like, I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna go. So she did not come. And Xerxes got so angry at this. And so he said, when the party was over, he was like, "Wow, this is like unbelievable. The queen just disobeyed me." So according to Persian law, you could have been just executed too. So, but he was so angry, he did not know what to do. And you need to be surrounded by good advisors, but he was not surrounded by good advisors. Some of the advisors came and said, "Okay, how can I please King Xerxes? Because he's so mad." Okay. And they came up with an idea. "Okay, get rid of Vashti. Get rid of the former queen. And why don't you get a new queen?" And so, actually, out of his anger, Xerxes got rid of Vashti. Pretty much just abandoned her, like threw her out. And then after that, so before they advised that he would get a new queen, he just got rid of her. And then for a few weeks, he was sitting there lonely, and he regretted, "What have I done? I got rid of my queen." But he was too proud, and you cannot call anybody back if you threw her out. So he was lonely, and his advisors came and said, "Why don't you get a new queen? You know, you're so lonely. Why don't you get a new queen? Someone who's even more beautiful than Vashti." And so he was pleased with that advice. So he, when a king is looking for a queen, do you know what happens in many of the kingdoms? This happened to Asia. This happened in many other countries. Is that when a king is looking for a queen, everything stops. No one can get married that year. So that edict got out, and all the marriageable age women have to be gathered and stand before the king one by one. So that's what was going on. So this is not a very pleasant event for any woman, any young woman, because the reason is, first of all, you cannot get married to anybody else. You cannot get married that year, and you cannot get your life is so affected by this. Okay, so say Esther, she was like 14, 15, she's very young, but she is considered as a marriageable woman, and so she was brought into the palace just like other thousands of women, thousands of beautiful women. And so you have to go to the king's palace one day, and the king does whatever to you that he wants to do, and after all, if he's not pleased with you, he says, "Okay, I'm done." Then what happens to you is you go back to harem, which is where the concubines are. Any woman who is not selected, because you can select only one queen, right? And so anybody else is thrown into harem, and you spend the rest of your life there. So that's the risk everyone's facing. So it's not a very good situation at all for Esther, right? By the way, Esther, when Esther went to, so you go to harem first, and you get beauty treatments. We talked about this, right? We read it. You get beauty treatment, like perfume, myrrh, the food that you eat, and how you dress, and so the eunuchs will help you, so that you would look the best. Okay, so that's what happened to Esther. But when Esther went into harem, there was a eunuch called Haggai. He was like the top guy in harem, and she won his favor. So do you know what that means? Like when you win someone's favor, so you can go to work, and your supervisor is there, and for some reason your supervisor loves you the most. That's favor. So he or she would do special things for you. So if you make a mistake, you're forgiven, right? If you do something well, he will announce it so that people will know. Like he will give you stuff, he will give you extra breaks or, favor. So that's favor, right? And Esther won the favor of Haggai. And so Haggai just gave her extra stuff. He put her into the best place and gave her servants that were best. And so she's treated with favor. And very interestingly, although this book is totally about God behind the scene working, but there's no mentioning of God in the book. So if you read the Bible, any book, if you read the Bible, then it will say, God did this, God did this, God said, and people pray to God. So somehow the word God appears somewhere, but this book does not have any mentioning of God. So it looks like a fairy tale, because it does not talk about God. But there's a reason it does not talk about God. The reason is because the author, which is not clear, like we don't know who the author is, but the author wants the reader to actively look for God by not mentioning about him. And so when she won the favor of Haggai, it's not because she was so much more beautiful. It's not because she was extra friendly. I mean, she might have, But the real reason she won the favor is because there was God behind her. How can I know? We'll talk about this. We'll come back to this. She won the favor of Haggai, and she won the favor of everyone in Haran, including all the competitors. It's not a very pretty situation. Okay, so unless you're picked by the king, you're going to be thrown into Haran and spend your rest of life in that prison. It's a prison, right? So the girls are not friendly to each other. They're trying to like fight for their life. But Esther was loved by everyone. Why? Because there was God's favor upon her. And why was God's favor upon her? I think I know part of the reason, but we're going to come back to this. So, and verse 10 says, Esther had not revealed her nationality and family background because Mordecai had forbidden her to do so. She did not talk about her nationality. She was a Jew, and she did not say to anyone that she was a Jew. So, like, she was considered as a Persian woman. Why? Because Mordecai instructed her, like, don't talk about your nationality. Don't talk about your family background. Mordecai was in the Word of God. He was a prayer warrior. He studied the Word of God, and I believe that he heard the voice of God. He listened to God. God instructed him, okay, don't let Esther know. She should not reveal her nationality. There's a reason. And so Esther, even after she became a queen, and she did get selected, she got picked by the king because God was behind her. I'm sure that there were so many other women who were more beautiful and more attractive than her. We're talking about thousands of women. But she won the favor of the king because of God, because God was coordinating. God was making this happen. So, but Mordecai had told her, don't talk about your nationality. So this all comes back. It could have been a very big issue if she revealed her nationality. She could have been killed too early. All right, so anyway, long story short, Mordecai, he was a God worshiper. And so Yahweh worshiper, he's a God worshiper. And so as a God worshiper, one of the 10 Commandments, right? What is that? Do not put any idol or bow down to any carved images. Do not put any God before me. Do not put any other God before me, right? So, meaning it's not about like going to a shrine and praying to a divine being. Like we're talking about do not put anything or anyone before Yahweh is what it means. And so Mordecai, as a Jew, and obviously he's a second-class citizen, in a conquered land, and he was sitting at the city gate, and people come and people go out, and there was a number 2 guy. Okay, number 1 was Xerxes. Number 2 guy was Haman. He's an Agagite, very evil man, but very powerful. So he would come through the gate. He's a Persian, number 2 guy, and he wants everyone to bow down to him. That's what he enjoys. You'd better bow down to me because I'm a powerful guy. But everyone else bowed down to him, but Mordecai did not. Mordecai did not get up. He was sitting down, and he did not bow down to him. Why? Because he's a Jew. He fears God. He is not supposed to put anybody before God, and he's not bowing down to anybody else than God. And therefore, he was just sitting there, and it became such a problem because Haman, whenever he saw that Mordecai was just sitting there, not bowing down to him, it bothered him. It bothered his pride. He got so mad one day, he decided, I'm going to kill that guy. Who is Mordecai? Find out about him. And so people told him that he's a Jew. Mordecai is a Jew. The reason he doesn't bow down to you is because he fears God. He is not supposed to bow down to any other God, any other person than Yahweh. And that's why he is sitting there like that. And he's like, what? A Jew not bowing down to him. Me, I'm going to kill off, like I'm going to just wipe out the entire tribe of Jews. Like, if there are millions, I'm going to just wipe them out. Genocide. Okay? Just like Nazis wanted to wipe out the Jews. Do you remember? Right? And so there was another massacre ready. And so Haman, he waited for an opportune time. So he came to talk to the king, King Xerxes, because he's the number 2 guy. He has a favor of Xerxes. Xerxes would grant his wishes. So Xerxes said, okay, what made you come here? And Haman says, King, I have a very sad news for you. There's a Jew, Mordecai. He does not bow down to me. The reason is because he's a Jew. He's not supposed to bow down to anybody else. Do you know what? If this is such a case, then the Jews are not going to honor you as king. We need to wipe them out. All right? And so Haman asks Xerxes to send out an edict to all the country, throughout the country. So a king's edict is like a letter that is sent out. All right, so everyone is supposed to read this. Okay, the Jews, they're the rebellious people, and we don't want any revolt. So let's get rid of them. Anybody who sees a Jew on the street, you can just kill him off. Okay, on such and such a day, say I don't know, February 14th, February 15th, I don't know. Let's kill them off. So that was the plan. When this edict got out, Mordecai also received the letter, and he tore his clothes. That's how you express sadness and anguish in Jewish culture. He tore his clothes. He put on a sackcloth. It's a very rough, plain cloth that you put on when you see a tragedy taking place. So he did that. He put ashes on his head. That's also an expression of anguish and sadness. And he sat down and he was mourning. And so Esther is in the palace. She heard about Mordecai. Your cousin Mordecai, Mordecai is actually doing this. Like he tore his clothes and he's just sitting down and mourning. And so Esther sent out, like, what is your concern? Please tell me. And Mordecai said, this is happening. Okay, the Jews are about to be wiped out. Esther, you're a queen. Talk to Xerxes. Talk to King Xerxes to stop this. And Queen Esther, do you know what she said? Because the Persian law is that if anybody comes to the palace without king's invitation, you get killed. So Esther said, you know what, Mordecai, I have a lot of respect for you. I want to do what you want me to do. But the king did not call me for 1 month. He hasn't called me for 1 month. And by the way, good morning. If you don't get the invitation from the king and show up in the palace, you get killed. So I'm sorry, I can't do that. And Mordecai, he knows God's plan. He kind of senses God's plan. I believe so. I can sense that by reading the chapters. It's like, Queen Esther, now you're a queen and I respect you. But do you fear God more? Do you fear God or do you fear people? Do you fear King Xerxes or do you fear God? Esther, I saw the whole process of you being selected as a queen. When you did not, so in this chapter that we just read, chapter 2, it talks about her being so, having such inner confidence and inner composure. When other girls were so busy making themselves beautiful and whatever in order to win the competition, she was very calm. She did not ask for anything else than what was already given to her, right? Where did that confidence come from? It came from knowing God and understanding that her life is in the hands of God. And so she was calm, and she did not fear. Now, she got selected as a queen, which is a wonderful thing, right? And Mordecai says, okay, you were selected as a queen, but do you know what? It's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing. Congratulations. But the reason you got selected as the queen, there must be a reason behind it. It's not that you got selected and yay, and let's go enjoy. You can enjoy, but there's a reason behind why you got selected as a queen. Do you know what? I think you were selected as a queen for such a time as this. Because your own people, my own people, the Jews are about to be wiped out, and you are in a place where you can actually go to the king and ask that the edict will be reverted, that the massacre would be stopped, that the Jews' lives will be saved. You are in a position to be able to save your own people. So I think you became a queen. God made you a queen for such a time as this. So that's what Mordecai said. And so, Queen Esther, I know you're at the risk of losing your own life if you show up at the king's palace without being invited. But if you don't do this job, then I know that our God Yahweh is going to save the Jews anyways, through another person. But if you don't do this job, you're going to be punished, you're going to die. And so, wow, this is a strong, rebuke. And Queen Esther, although she became a queen, she did not become arrogant. She was still humble, and she was still listening to her mentor. And so she said, Mordecai, I may die, but I will still go to the king and ask for reverting of the edict so that the Jews will be saved. If I die, I die. So she said the famous saying, if I perish, I perish. Esther chapter 4. And so, did she just run to the palace and said, King Xerxes, please don't kill my people? No, she did not do that. She was raised by Mordecai, who was a thoughtful person, who was a God-fearer. So Proverbs 9:11 says what? The fear of God, fear of the Lord, fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. So she feared God, Mordecai feared God, and therefore they had wisdom. And she was a woman of prayers, I could tell, because immediately when she said, if I die, I die, but I will go to the king. But please do this for me. Immediately she says this, Mordecai, please gather all the Jews in Susa. Gather all of them. And tell them to fast. Do you know what fasting is? What's fasting? Not eating, not drinking water. Yeah. It's primarily not eating. So tell all the Jews to fast for 3 days. Don't eat for 3 days. Pray to God that my life will be saved and their lives will be saved. Please go tell them. So Mordecai said, yes. And he went out and told all the Jews, let's fast and pray because our life is at stake and our Queen Esther is at, her life is at stake. And so Queen Esther, okay, she did not reveal her nationality yet. The king doesn't even know that she's a Jew, all right? Because Mordecai had instructed her so. And so she fasts. She told her servants to fast for 3 days. And after fasting for 3 days, what happens? How do you look? Did before?
Yeah, every year.
Every year? How many days?
1 month.
1 month. Like three meals a day? Or 1 meal a day? Like how much of fasting?
2 meals.
1 meal a day?
No, 2 meals.
2 meals a day. Wow, so you just eat 1 meal and
Yeah.
last for
We are
1 month.
fasting almost 17, 18 hours.
Yeah, that's all. So how do you look afterwards?
Healthy.
Oh, healthy.
Yeah.
That's not true for most of the cases. So if you're a normal, average person, after fasting, if you don't eat for like one whole day, how do you look? You look tired. Yeah? You feel dizzy. Your stomach is growling. Yeah? I mean, come on. That's not normal. So if you fast for 3 days, then you look like this, you know? And you're like, I'm gonna pass out. You know, you don't look very healthy. You don't look very pretty. So why did Queen Esther do this? She needs to look pretty in order to win the king's favor, right? She should do more beauty treatments and she should eat well and do all that stuff, like put on the best clothes, but she did not do that. Okay, well maybe she put on the best clothes, but she did not eat. Why? Because she was so desperate. She's like crying out to God, our God Yahweh, please save us. This is my prayer. I'm fasting because this is so urgent. And I'm saying that with my own life, I'm risking my own life to pray to you so that you will turn the situation around. Bring a great reversal, please. Okay? So I'm praying to you with my life, is what she meant. And so by fasting, she's relying on God more. She's fearing God, and she's not fearing King Xerxes. Even if I look pale and terrible, if your favor is on me, then I'm going to pass through this. Versus, if I just eat and try my own human efforts to look beautiful before, so that I will please King Xerxes, it's not going to save my people, because our lives are ultimately in the hands of God, not in the hands of King Xerxes. Xerxes is a very, very powerful king. He's the most powerful king in Persian history. However, I trust you that you can save our lives, is what she means by fasting and praying. So after having fasted for 3 days, 3 nights, all the Jews too, she finally put on her clothes. She goes to the palace. Remember, you get killed if you show up at the palace without king's invitation. By the way, there's one way that your life can be saved. Is when you show up without invitation, but the king reaches out his scepter, then you live. So, wow, you have to win the king's favor. When Esther showed up in the palace, King Xerxes, she looked at her. Wow, I haven't met her in a month, because he probably has so many concubines. I haven't met her in a month, but she looks absolutely beautiful and lovely. I want to talk to her. So he reached out the golden scepter. So she was saved. She did not get killed. And by the way, King's heart was so moved. He asked this question, Queen Esther, I love you so much. I want to give you even a half of this empire. What is it that you want? Tell me what you want, and I will give it to you. So did Queen Esther go, King, I'm a Jew. My people are about to be wiped out by Haman. Please save us. Did she say that? No. Because she's a woman of prayers. She knows God's intention. And she follows God's guidance. So she did not say anything. She said, King Xerxes, if it pleases you, please come to my banquet tonight. And I just want to spend good time with you. So she said that, and the king was like, of course, absolutely, I will show up. All right, what time? 6, 7, I'll be there. All right, so she goes out back to her palace, and she prepares extravagant banquet, of course with her servants. And the king, by the way, she said this, oh, King Xerxes, please come with Haman, your number 2 guy. And the king is like, he has no idea. He has no idea. He doesn't know the queen is a Jew. He doesn't know that Haman is displeased about Mordecai and therefore trying to wipe out the entire tribe of Jews. He doesn't know what's on Esther's mind at all. And so he said, okay, I will come. I will come with Haman. All right, just wait for me. And so, extravagant banquet is taking place. Oh, everything is so delicious, and the wine pleases the king, and the queen is so beautiful, so he's just absolutely pleased. And he goes, welcome. And he goes, Queen Esther, so you're so lovely, and this banquet is so pleasing to me. So tell me, what do you want? I want to give it to you. I want to do it for you. And did Queen Esther say, oh, King Xerxes, please, please save my people? No, she did not say that. Once again, she's a woman of prayer. She knows God's intention, and she follows God's instruction. She did not say anything. She said, King Xerxes, if you're so pleased about me, and if you're so pleased about this banquet, come again tomorrow. With Haman. Come again tomorrow. All right. Wow. Where did she get this wisdom from? She's building suspense. The king is wondering, why is she calling me? Why is she inviting me to a banquet? Like 2 nights in a row. Like this never happened before. So it's building suspense in him. He's wondering, all right? But everything is so pleasing. So he decides, okay, I'll come tomorrow. And then, so the next day comes. By the way, Haman was invited, and he's a number 2 guy. He's arrogant. He thinks he's so powerful. He can do all things, right? And Haman is so displeased about Mordecai. He wants to kill Mordecai because he's now bowing down to him. And so he was invited to the queen's party, and he's like, oh, of course the queen loves me because I'm the number 2 guy. The king loves me, the queen loves me. Oh, I'm in good shape. So he's totally arrogant and satisfied about himself. Now, he came back home and he told his wife, hey, I got invited to the queen's party. Like, there was nobody else who was invited to that banquet but me. I'm such a great guy, all right? So he just bragged about it. And then the next day came. The king decided to show up at the Esther's banquet again, right? And he invited Haman again because Esther told him so. So Haman is going out. It's like, by the way, when the first day when he was going out to meet the queen at the banquet, and the queen, he saw Mordecai at the gate. Oh, this guy is not bowing down to me. Like, I'm going to really get rid of you. You know, he's so angry again. So when he came back home, he told his servants to make a gallows. Do you know what a gallows is? What's a gallows? To hang people. To hang people. I have to scare you with this. Alright? Have you seen this before? To kill people. So he told those servants, make like 10 feet gallows. I'm gonna hang Mordecai on there. So prepare that. So the servants made 10 feet gallows. And now his anger has subsided because he's like, okay, tomorrow I'm getting rid of him. So I'm not angry anymore. So he went into the palace. Okay, so the second day, he went into the palace to the queen's banquet. Xerxes went there. Now Xerxes saw that every food was so delicious. Oh, these are all my favorite dishes. And oh, that is the best wine that I love. "Oh, Queen Esther, you look so beautiful. Like, I'm so pleased. What is it that you want? Tell me, and I'll give it to you." So who moved his heart like that? It's God behind. Just tell me. Even if you say, "Give me the half of this Persian kingdom, I will give it to you." But tell me. Then Queen Esther said, "King Xerxes, I have a request." "What is it? Tell me." Now the suspense has built up, like, the king is dying, like, "Tell me." And the queen goes, "You know what? I'm a Jew. And my people are out there, millions of them. And by the way, someone is trying to kill me. Hi, come in. Someone is trying to kill me and my people. So please save my people. Please save my life." And the king, because she looks so lovely, she's so pleased. He's so pleased. His anger is just explosive. Like, who is trying to kill you? Who is trying to kill your people? I'm gonna kill that guy. Wow. And Queen Esther goes, "Haman, you're number 2 guy. He's trying to kill me and my people." The king could not control his anger that his number 2 guy is trying to kill his lovely queen and her people. He went out to the courtyard because he couldn't control his anger. He just went ballistic. He was like, when his anger, he had anger outbursts for, like, I don't know how many minutes, maybe 30 minutes. And finally, he's like, "Let me calm down. Let me do something about the situation." And he went back to the banqueting table. And by the way, Haman, how would you have felt? Haman, he went purple and blue. He's like, "I didn't know she was a Jew. Like, I'm about to be killed." And so he was trembling. So he knelt down before the queen and said, "Queen Esther, please don't kill me. Please, I'm really sorry. Like, tell me what I'm supposed to do. Please don't kill me." So he put his head on her lap, and right at the time, the king Xerxes walked in. And he's like, "What are you doing to my queen?" And he grabbed him by the neck, threw him out of the palace, and he said, "Is someone out there? Get this guy. Get Haman and hang him." And one of the servants said, "King Xerxes, we don't know where to hang him, but we heard that Haman made this gallows 10 feet tall to hang Mordecai. Do you want us to hang him there?" King Xerxes says, "Go out and do it." So instead of Mordecai, Haman gets hung on that gallows. And by the way, Esther, being a woman of prayer, knowing God's will, and being very thoughtful and wise because she fears the Lord, she did not stop there. She said, "King Xerxes, I'm still sad because your edict has gone out to wipe out the Jews. Could you please reverse it? Reverse it." And the king said, "Oh, that's right." So he sent out edict saying, "Do not kill the Jews. Don't lay hands on them. If anyone wants to kill the Jew, then that person will be killed." That is my edict, my new edict, reversing the situation. So that day, when the Jews were supposed to be wiped out, anyone who wanted to kill the Jews were killed. It's a complete reversal of the situation, right? And the Jews, Queen Esther and Mordecai, they were so thankful to God and they rejoiced. They picked this day, say, I don't know, February 15 or something like that, right? It's not the accurate date, I'm just throwing out a date, okay? Say February 15. Let's celebrate this. Although there was no mentioning of God in the book, we know that God was behind all along. Queen Esther probably thought, you know what? I was an orphan. I was picked up by my cousin Mordecai. I grew up as an exile, I grew up as like a servant, like a second-class citizen in this country of Persia that invaded our country and took away all our people. I was looked down upon. By the age of 14, I faced the biggest crisis in my life, which was risking my life, having to go to the harem, wanting to be selected by the king, otherwise I would have been in my harem forever, in that practical prison. I faced that crisis, but God saved me. God made me look beautiful, and He had His favor upon me, and therefore the king selected me. And by the way, something very important happened. My people were about to be killed, but because of Mordecai's advice, and I know that that was God's voice through him, I listened to my mentor, Mordecai, my father figure and mentor, and I was able to save my people. I know that all along, God was with me, and God was with our people. We're believers, God-fearers, and therefore, let's celebrate this day. So, do you know what Purim is? Have you heard of Purim? Do you know what Pur means? Pur means lots. So, have you ever played games before? Some of the games actually have multiple players, and like in a basket or in a sack, you would have names written. And so you go and pick one of the names, and if your name gets picked, you get to play, or something like that, That's lots, right? Lot. And so Pur means lots.
There's nothing to cancel.
The reason they called it Pur, or Purim, which is plural form, is because on the day when the Jews were supposed to be wiped out, they were supposed to be killed, the massacre, they had to pick a date. And so Haman and his evil men actually took a lot. They picked a date, opened the date, February 14th. That's when we're gonna kill off all the Jews. So they casted lots in order to pick the date to kill the Jews. By the way, their lot did not work out because God was behind the scene, and He worked it out in such a marvelous way with perfect timing. Even the gallows, right? Even the gallows. And so He turned the situation around. He reversed the situation, and He actually saved the Jews, and their enemies were killed off. And so the day is celebrated even today as Purim. So I've been to a Jewish celebration before. I was invited to their dinner, Purim dinner. And they had their traditional food, and they also had cookies. They were like kind of triangular cookie, very delicious with jam inside. And I'm like, what is this? And somebody told me it's called Haman's ears. Okay, they're really delicious, but they're called Haman's ears. All right. Why am I talking about this? What does it have to do? It's about the Jews. It's about history. It's about massacre. Like, why are we talking about this? What's the implication for us? The implication for Christ followers is that, number one, Queen Esther and Mordecai were in exile. Persian Empire took over the land of Judah, and so they were subjected to Persian Empire. They were like slaves. They were like the second-class citizens. And so you and I might be living in this land, right? Well, America is a free country, and they honor diversity, and so we're in a different situation. We're not in exile, but if you believe in God, there will be hardships that might take place, some problems, difficulties. But God is behind, and so we should not fear. Sometimes God does not seem to be with us, but He's actively present if we look for Him. So the book of Esther does not mention anything like God. It does not talk about God at all, right? Very interesting. One of the most interesting books in the Bible. Why does it not talk about God when it's supposed to? The reason is because although the letter God is not there, it's actively pointing to the fact that God was behind every single thing. Just like that, in your life, you might not feel God's presence at all. You might just feel like you're doing something on your own. And you might be doing something on your own, like, I don't know, your own business, I don't know, your own restaurant, your own team, I don't know, doing things with your own family, you know, you might be working, your own coffee shop, okay, your own job, like, you might think that you're doing everything on your own. But do you know that ultimately your life is in the hands of God? That He's a divine coordinator, although He's not visible. He's not mentioned. Like, some of you might not even know God yet. But do you know that God is behind everything? And so what we need to do is, actually we need to look for God. Because sometimes we're missing it. He's there and we're missing it. If we miss the fact that God is with us, then we're missing out. It's not God's disadvantage, but it's our disadvantage if we don't know God, or if we don't realize that God is with us. The reason is because look how Queen Esther was able to save her own life, save her own people, which she did not imagine. I don't think she walked into the palace one day and she said, oh, you know what? I'm going to save my own people. I'm such a great leader. No, I don't think she thought about herself like that. But it just happened in such a way that she ended up saving her own people. She's a wonderful leader, by the way. But it was all by God's coordination. So if you pay attention to what God is doing in your life, then you might do something greater than what you have imagined. Like, there are many other examples in the Bible, like Hannah not having a child, praying for a child, and she got a child, Samuel. He turned out to be the greatest prophet in the Old Testament history. You know, Elizabeth in the New Testament, she did not know. She also was childless. She prayed, she got a child named John the Baptist. And Jesus called him, there's no greater man than John the Baptist on this earth. Wow. All right, so we might, if we pay attention to God, if we pray especially and pay attention to what He's doing in our life, in each of your life, and realize what He's doing, and just follow one step at a time, just like Queen Esther, you might be doing something great. I don't know if some of you even think, oh, you know what? I'm satisfied. You know, I just want to go shopping, or I just want to go drinking. You know, I want a comfortable life. You know, that I'm satisfied. I don't want anything great. Like, I don't want to do anything great. I don't know if you might be thinking that way, but you know, God's dream for each one of you is greater than what we think. So if you carefully follow God step by step, one day you will find yourself doing something more meaningful than just living a day every day. Something more great, something greater than your own imagination or your own dreams. And by the way, another thing that is completely applicable to us from the book of Esther is that God is a God of great reversal. What does that mean? what is the situation that you're facing right now? Some of the difficult situations I'm asking. Okay, so for example, I'm going to talk about my own friend without mentioning her name because I did not ask her for permission. So she came in to this country a long time ago, and she did not know that because of her parents, she could have gotten the green card very easily, you know, as a dependent. But she did not know, her parents did not know, so she did not go through that process. After so many years, her parents had to go to another country out of the United States. And she found out, oh, you know what, I'm still on my visa. I need to get a green card, and I could have gotten a green card through my parents. Why did I not do this? Okay, so she just found out that, you know, so her situation was very difficult, all right? And by the way, she has a job, and that job ultimately is going to give her a green card. So she applied for it, but then something happened in the process, and you never know what's going to happen to your green card, right? And so something happened that did not work out. After waiting for like more than a year, it did not work out. Wow, she doesn't have a visa. I mean, she has a working visa, but she doesn't have a green card. She cannot go out to other countries because, you know, this is where she has been living for a long time. If she goes to other countries like Korea, she doesn't have any connections, she can't survive there. And so the situation was very difficult. I don't know if you have that kind of situation right now, you know, with your visa, or I don't know if you have any illnesses in your family, you know, somebody being sick. My mom was sick very much, you know, had a very serious illness. She went through multiple surgeries, and it wore her out, and she went through some very, very dangerous, you know, situations. Are you facing any of that, or something happening to your kid, or something happening in your marriage, or you're very unsure about your future because you've been working so hard for this one thing and it did not work out? I don't know where you're at, and whatever your situation is, I'm letting you know that God is a great God of reversal. He's very good at, he's a master at turning things around, turning things upside down, just like what happened to Queen Esther and the Jews. And so if you pray to him, and if you follow him step by step, just like Esther, your situation can be reversed. That's what God is saying to all of us through the book of Esther. And I just want to challenge you with this. Each of you, I understand that we are very busy. Are we busy? Most of us, right? You're busy working. You're busy managing your own family, right? Trying to make the ends meet. Some of you are working really hard to earn money so that you can send your kids to school, eventually to college. Some of you did not have a vacation for a long time, like me. We all go through the motions. Looks like every day is the same. However, every day is not the same if you pay attention to God, if you pay attention to what He's doing in our lives. And so it might look like an ordinary day, but if you understand what God is doing, it's a very special day. And we're not coincidences. I don't know, any of you have ever felt like, you know, I'm born, I'm a coincidence, like I'm one dot among the statistics, you know? Have you ever felt like one dot in many statistics? You know, like the bell curve? You know, have you seen this? All right, I'm an average person. All right, I'm here, I'm there. You know, like there are millions of people out there, people who are smarter, people who are stronger, someone who's richer, someone who is more powerful, have better connections. Why is this guy having an easy life? Why is my life so difficult? You know, sometimes, I don't know if any of you ever felt that. But you're not a coincidence, although your situation might be a little bit challenging right now. And you don't have to stay that way. Like, your situation does not have to stay that way. If you know God, if you come to know Christ, and if you pray to Him, it's gonna reverse that situation around. So this friend that I talked about, her green card did not work out. She could not work outside because she studied in the United States. She studied in the American system. She's a social worker. She cannot go outside to, her license does not work, all right? And she cannot work in other countries, but she doesn't have a green card. So she had a lot of difficulties. I'm not gonna go into the details, but something happened in such a way in her marriage that the second time she applied for a green card, she was at the risk of not receiving it. Something happened. So she faced a situation where she probably would not get a green card, and she had to go out of the country. And she could not. And so, wow, very, very difficult situation. And I just felt her pain. She had no money, no green card, okay? Family falling apart. But you know what? She turned to fasting and praying. She started praying. She engaged in warfare. She just went to God like Esther would go to King Xerxes and said, Lord, please turn the situation around. And do you know what? After a month of praying and fasting, all of a sudden something worked out. At her work and in her family, something worked out. And she finally got a green card, eventually. And she got a new job, better job. And now she's giving a testimony. You know what? When I asked the Lord to change my situation around, He did answer my prayers. And so I want to just challenge you, whatever your situation is, it doesn't have to stay that way. And I want to really encourage you to come to know God and talk to Him just honestly about how you feel about the situation, what your situation is about, how you want it to be changed. And He's so wise and powerful. He can turn the situation around with perfect guidance. I know we haven't talked about this booklet. If you turn to page 26. Sure. Roman numeral 1.
What is it?
26. Roman numeral 1, authorship. Do you see the picture? This is the thing that I was talking about. So Queen Esther shows up at the palace, right? And you are not supposed to show up at the palace without the king's specific invitation. And when she did, her life was saved because the king extended the scepter, golden scepter, to her. That's the scene. All right. Can you please read authorship for us?
Authorship, unclean, internal evasion, provide information.
Right. Internal evidence provides inferences. What does that mean? So when you read the book of Esther, then you can tell, but just, although we do not talk about who the writer is, you can kind of tell who the writer is by just reading it, reading between the lines, okay? And
the authors was a few.
yeah, the author was a Jew. Yeah, obviously the author was a Jew.
It focuses on the origin of the Jesuits, vegetable and the Jesuit nationalism.
Jewish festival, and we're talking about Purim. I just talked about Purim, right? They're still celebrating it, and it's talking about the historical origin of the Jewish festival, right? And then let's go into Ko. Can you please read the next line?
Alright. Knowledge of Parisian
Mm-hmm.
customs,
Right.
the setting of the story in the city of Susa,
Yes.
and the absence of any difference to conditions or circumstances
Mm-hmm.
in the land of Judah.
Yeah. The reason it does not mention the land of Judah is because they're not in Judah. They're in Susa, which is a Persian country, which is a city in Persia, right? So the setting is in the exile, right? Can you continue with us?
Alright. Probably a resident of a prison city.
Probably a resident of the Persian Sea. So
Oh,
the author is somebody who is living in Persia, right? Probably living in the city of Susa because it talks about the details about the city. If you're living in Judah or if you're living in a different country, probably you don't know the details. But if you're living in, I don't know, where do you live? James, where do you live? Where do you live?
Now or before?
Yeah, now.
Corona.
Oh, Corona, right, that's right. So if he's living in Corona, he probably doesn't know the details of La Abra, right? I don't know where you're living, Suha, but say if you're living in Anaheim, you would not know the details about Louisville in Texas. You won't know, right? So therefore, if you know certain details about certain city, probably you can tell by someone, you can tell by the details that, oh, this person knows this city. Probably is living in that city, right? So that's what they're talking about. All right, and then the next line.
alright. The earliest stage for the book would be shortly after the event narrated.
So it's like 460 BC, right? And
The festival of Purim had been observed for some time prior to the actual writing of the book, and then
Xerxes
had already died.
Right. So, the historical event already took place, and they were celebrating Purim, every year. It took place a few times before this book was actually written. Okay. All right. Thank you. Roy, Roman numeral 2. Purpose and themes.
To record the situation of the annual festival of Purim and to keep alive for later generations the memory of the great
Deliverance.
of the Jewish people.
Right. So it's talking about the background of the festival of Purim and to remind the next generations, okay, remember what happened? You were delivered. You were saved, right? That's what it's talking about. You said?
The initiation of that observance and the obligation for its perpetual commemoration, the ongoing conflict between Israel and the
Amalekites.
A conflict that began during the Exodus and continued through Israel's history.
Yeah, so actually Haman was an Amalekite who was against the Jews, like historically, way back like thousands of years before, during Exodus, they were all like enemies against each other, and it trickled down to the time of Esther as well. Audrey.
Americans were
View
viewed as the
epitome
of all the power of the world arrayed against God's people.
Yeah, so Amalekites are a specific tribe, but they are symbolically representing all the people who are against God's people, right? Vivian.
Hamas edict is the final major influence in the OG period to restoration.
Right. So do you remember? So it goes back to Exodus when the Amalekites tried to wipe out the Israelites. Okay, and then it's repeated historically. All right. Do you remember during before Exodus, there was another massacre. I think we talked about this in our previous class, where Pharaoh from Egypt, he wanted to kill off all the people of Israel. Do you remember? Actually, they wanted to kill off the potential king because it would be a threat to his own throne. So Pharaoh actually sent out an edict: kill off any Hebrew man, Hebrew young boy under 2 years of age. Kill them. So do you know there was a massacre at that time too? Hebrews are Jewish people, okay? The old term. So if you go to like pyramids, do you know that there are like a pictorial, like the pictures of historical records? Like they did not have like they didn't have letters, but they somehow engraved on the pyramid inside, on the wall. They draw pictures of what actually happened, and so you can tell that at one point they were taking away of the babies, all the Hebrew boys under 2 years of age, and throwing them into the Nile River, where the alligators are opening their mouths so they were killed. So there was a historical event there. So it goes back to like Exodus, like trying to wipe out the entire people of God. They're having constant efforts. Now, even recent past, the Nazis tried to wipe out the Jews. Is that true? There's some kind of repeated theme of killing off the Jews. All right, Vivian, did you read it?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, Suha.
The rest of
Haman's edict.
Haman's edict.
Oh, sorry, the rest.
The rest that is promised to the people of God.
Right. The rest means like Shabbat Shalom, like Shalom, peace will be with you. Although the situation was really risky and it was dangerous, rest is coming. Right. The next sentence.
With Haman's defeat, the Jews enjoying rest from their enemies.
Right. Haman's defeat means God reversed the situation around. Haman was planning to wipe out the entire Jews, but he was hung on that tree. Okay. Han.
Which one? Draw from the remnant modify that record throughout the Bible, nature, the earth, disaster, deceit, wherefore, but all other calamity, did God people, those whose survival constitute remnant.
Remnant. Okay. Remaining people. Right. All right. Eric.
The future existence of God choosing people, and ultimately the appearance of the
Yeah, so why is there like a recurring theme of trying to wipe out the Jews? It's because the Messiah, the Messiah to come, was going to come out of that tribe of Judah. Yeah? So although he was not conceived by men, he was conceived by the Holy Spirit, he was going to come through the lineage of the Jews, the line of Judah. So then the effort to wipe out the entire tribe is not just about the hatred against certain tribe, but it's the enemy's plan to cut off, like to stop the Messiah from coming, to block it, to make it not happen, okay? By just wiping out the entire tribe. Then Messiah cannot come. That's what it wants, right? But out of all the tragic events and all the efforts, the enemy was defeated and Messiah came, right?
I don't know much of his material on the events of the Joseph's story, in which the remnant motive is also central to the narrative.
Yeah. So we were talking about the book of Genesis, the last son, or the second to the last son of Israel, Jacob. Israel is another name for Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. The 11th son was Joseph, and it goes back to our Pentateuch, the first five books of Moses, 2 quarters ago. I don't know if you remember anything about that. Joseph was hated by his brothers. He was taken into slavery into Egypt, right? He was thrown into a pit, sold into the hands of the merchants, and they took him to Egypt, sold him to the Potiphar's house. Potiphar was a very powerful man under the Egyptian king, and Joseph learned a lot of skills and knowledge, new language, new culture, and how to manage the household. He went through so many difficulties, and finally he was falsely accused, thrown into prison, and he had to spend years there, right? He had no hopes for a while, but God worked in his heart. Like in the midst of all this trouble and difficult situations, God worked on his character. He made him stronger. God made him wiser. God taught him, gave him opportunities to learn the language and customs. And finally, when he was brought out of the prison, he became the prime minister of Egypt. A Hebrew slave boy became the prime minister of Egypt. Why? Because God was behind it. Those chapters specifically mention that God was behind it. God was with Joseph, and he prospered in everything that he did. It specifically mentions that. So that it kind of matches the story of Book of Esther. Right? Jessica.
Fasting is another romance in the banquets, who at the city for important road development.
Right, feasting. So we talked about banquet, right? Esther invited King Xerxes and Haman for a purpose to her banquet. And by the way, the beginning, the first chapter of Book of Esther talks about Vashti, Queen Vashti, saying no to King Xerxes when she was invited to the banquet, thrown by King Xerxes. He's trying to demonstrate his kingdom, and he called Vashti. She said no, and therefore the event took place. She got displaced. And then when Queen Esther was selected and became a queen, there's another banquet, right? And remember, when Haman and Xerxes were invited by Esther, that was also a banquet. So like feasting is another prominent theme, and it's like a background that provides all the development of things. Yusef, 10 banquets or record and duplications.
In addition to the 3 groups of banquets that come in pairs, there are 2 lists of the king's servants. 2 reports that Esther concealed her identity. 2 gatherings of women. 2 fasts. 2 consolation of Haman with his wife and friends. 2 unscheduled appearances of Esther before the king.
Right.
2 investitures for Mordecai. 2 coverings of Haman's face. 2 royal edicts. 2 references to the subsiding of the king's anger. 2 references to irrevocability of the Persian laws. 2 days for the Jews to take vengeance. 2 letters instituting the commemoration of.
Yeah, so there are a lot of pairs, a lot of twos. So what does that symbolize? So when it's repeated twice in Hebraic culture, Jewish culture, it means very significant, very important. It's emphasizing, right? So, so we kind of covered what the book of Esther is. Having said that, just go with this application in your life. We might feel like living in exile sometimes, but behind us is God, and we need to recognize what He's doing in our lives, what He wants us to do. And we can do greater things than what we had imagined. And if we have difficult situations, He can turn it around if we turn to Him in prayer. Turn to Him, and if you turn to Him in prayer. So, having said that, time's almost up, but how many of you are available next week for lunch? We're gonna go to a close place. You said that there's a good place, Churn, right? Nearby.
Where?
Do you remember like there's a restaurant in?
Oh, Chingy. On Irvine.
Not in Irvine, no, we don't want you said that there's a very, very close restaurant. That's closer than where we went out last time as a group. Anyway, so we're gonna decide on the place later. It's gonna be close, okay, within 10 minutes from here. So how many of you are available for lunch next week?
Next week?
Yeah, next week. All right. All of you, right? Come on, you're available, right? You said that you're available, no? Did I not?
Let's see, listen.
So are you available?
He's not available.
Are you available any other time? No? Right after class. Is it every week?
哪星期呢？
对，不确定。
Not sure.
Not sure. Jessica, you're coming, right?
Oh, sorry. Okay.
You're coming, right? Alright, how about you? Every week? Like you're not available every week? So you have to go back home like straight?
Yeah.
Okay. Han, you'll be available, right?
Not sure.
You are. I know your schedule. Alright. So you'll be available, right? You can come even briefly. It's gonna be very close. Can you schedule ahead of time? Yeah, you don't have to stay long. It's gonna be kind of short. Because the reason is because like you're sitting in class and we're just reading off, but I don't get to know you. Like I don't get to talk to you. So like I just take an opportunity to just go out and eat together and chat. And, yeah, you can come to me and talk to me anytime, but I think just eating together is kind of meaningful. Yeah, you can come. Let it be yes.
I'm not sure. I live in San Diego. Yes, long drive home.
But you have to eat.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. Sometimes I bring my husband to here.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't bring him next time.
I'm just not sure. I'll try to be.
Okay. All right. So let's aim for next week because I don't want it to be the last week because last week I don't know if everyone's coming. So all right. So go in peace. If you find out a good restaurant close by, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just decide on my own.